The massive crystalline chamber of Nexus Station hummed with tension as four of the galaxy's most powerful beings gathered in emergency session. The holographic star map floating above the central table pulsed with red warning indicators, each one marking another human colony that had appeared seemingly overnight. Admiral Kilos of the Corvan Empire shifted his massive, scarred frame in the specially reinforced chair. His yellow eyes, which had witnessed the destruction of entire star systems, now held something they rarely contained: uncertainty. The data streaming across his personal display showed impossible numbers. Human expansion had accelerated beyond all mathematical models. "Explain to me again," Kilos growled, his voice like grinding stone, "how a species we discovered only 5 cycles ago now controls 47 star systems." Counselor Xylith of the Ethereal Collective floated in her containment sphere, her translucent form flickering with agitation. The psychic waves emanating from her being created visible distortions in the air around her chair. "The situation defies all precedent, Admiral. When we first encountered them, humans appeared to be a typical pre-spaceflight civilization. Primitive radio communications, chemical rockets, basic nuclear technology. The Zephyrian delegate, Commander Nexos, was a being of pure energy housed within a sophisticated mechanical framework. His artificial voice carried the weight of computational certainty, yet even he sounded confused. Our initial assessment indicated they would require at least 200 standard years to achieve interstellar capability. Instead, they accomplished this in less than 3. Ancient Valdorian Ambassador Kethmore, whose species had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years, spoke with the deliberate pace of true age. His withered form was kept alive by technology older than most civilizations. "The humans do not follow established patterns. Every species we have encountered follows predictable development cycles. First, they achieve spaceflight. Then they explore nearby systems. Eventually, they encounter one of our empires and accept their place in the galactic hierarchy." "But not humans," Kilos stated rather than asked. "Definitely not humans," Kethmore confirmed. The holographic display shifted, showing tactical recordings from recent encounters. Xylith gestured with one ethereal appendage, and the first recording began to play. It showed a human vessel, barely larger than a Corvan fighter, facing down an entire battle squadron. "This is Commander Juan of the Earth ship Defiant," the recording played. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system before I make you withdraw." Kilos snorted. "I remember this incident. Warchief Thrax commanded that squadron. 50 ships against 1 human vessel." The recording continued, showing the impossible: the human ship somehow convincing the entire Corvan squadron to stand down. Not through superior firepower, not through technological advantage, but through something the galactic powers had never encountered before. "Thrax reported that the human commander was completely unarmed," Kilos explained. "He transported aboard our flagship and spoke directly to our warriors. Within 3 hours, Thrax had signed a non-aggression pact and granted the humans safe passage through that entire sector." "What did this Juan say to them?" Nexos inquired, his mechanical voice processing thousands of scenarios per second. "That is the disturbing part," Kilos admitted. "He spoke about honor. About choosing to be better than their orders demanded. About protecting the innocent regardless of species. Concepts that our warriors had not heard in centuries of conquest." Xylith's form pulsed brighter. "Our experiences have been equally troubling. When we attempted standard mental domination protocols on human settlements, we encountered unexpected resistance. The human mind appears naturally resistant to psychic intrusion." "Naturally resistant?" Kethmore leaned forward with interest. "More than resistant," Xylith continued. "Some humans seem capable of reflecting our telepathic attacks back at us. We lost 3 mind readers to a human teacher named Isul. She somehow turned their own psychic energy against them." The recording shifted to show Zephyrian encounters. Commander Nexos's mechanical frame sparked with what might have been embarrassment. "Our technological superiority has proven less superior than anticipated. Human engineer Jaiwan somehow reverse-engineered our quantum processors using primitive Earth materials and what she called creative thinking." "Creative thinking?" Kilos asked. "An approach to problem-solving that does not follow logical pathways. Humans appear to leap to solutions without following proper computational sequences. The results should be impossible, yet they consistently work." The display now showed dozens of human colonies scattered across previously unclaimed systems. Each one represented a failure of galactic authority to maintain order. They refused to acknowledge established territory, Kethmore said, his ancient voice carrying frustration. When we offered them client species status within the Valdorian Empire, their representative politely declined. A young female named Nari then proceeded to establish independent colonies in 3 of our outer systems. What was their justification? Xylith inquired. They claimed that no species has the right to claim star systems they do not actively inhabit. They argued that the galaxy belongs to all sentient beings, not just the strongest. Kethmore's expression suggested he still could not believe such words had been spoken. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of life support systems and the soft glow of the holographic displays. Each representative contemplated the same disturbing reality. For the first time in galactic history, they faced a species that refused to accept the natural order of things. There is something else, Kilo said finally. Reports from our border worlds indicate that human ideas are spreading among our subject populations. Slave soldiers are beginning to ask why they must serve. Workers are questioning their assigned castes. Some have even begun to rebel. The infection spreads through trade routes and communication networks, Nexos confirmed. Humans do not simply exchange goods. They exchange concepts. Ideas that undermine established hierarchies. Revolution, Xylith whispered, the word creating visible waves in the air around her. They bring revolution without armies, conquest without weapons. Kethmore's ancient eyes closed briefly. In 10,000 years of rule, we have never encountered anything like this. The humans are not trying to replace our empires with their own. They are trying to eliminate the concept of empire altogether. The weight of this realization settled over the chamber like a shroud. For civilizations that had dominated the galaxy through strength, technology, mental power, and ancient authority now faced an enemy that fought with something far more dangerous. The belief that things could be different. Admiral Kilo stood, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. Then we are agreed. The human problem must be resolved before their influence spreads further. The others nodded in unison, each understanding what this meant. For the first time in galactic history, the great powers would unite against a common threat. The Zephyrian survey ship, Eternal Light, drifted silently above the 3rd planet of an unremarkable star system. Captain Tay studied the primitive radio signals emanating from the world below with satisfaction. This would be another routine first contact mission: establish superiority, assess resources, integrate the species into their empire's vast network of client worlds. Begin standard scanning protocols, Tay commanded his crew. The ship's advanced sensors penetrated the planet's atmosphere, mapping cities, analyzing technology levels, counting population centers. Everything appeared normal for a pre-spaceflight civilization. Sir, reported scanner operator ZWX, detecting crude nuclear technology, basic computing systems, chemical propulsion. Standard development level 7 on our classification scale. Excellent. Prepare first contact sequence alpha. We shall offer them the gift of advanced civilization in exchange for resource agreements. Tay had performed this routine dozens of times across the galaxy. Lesser species always accepted Zephyrian guidance when faced with their obvious technological superiority. The initial broadcast was transmitted on all frequencies the humans used for communication. It was a simple message of peaceful contact, accompanied by mathematical proofs that demonstrated Zephyrian scientific advancement. The response came within hours. Unknown vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. Please identify your intentions and maintain current orbital position while we prepare a diplomatic response. They almost laughed. The primitives were trying to give orders to a civilization that had mastered faster-than-light travel when their ancestors were still living in caves. Transmit our standard technology demonstration, he ordered. Show them what real power looks like. The Eternal Light activated its matter converters, transforming several small asteroids into perfect geometric shapes. The display should have awed the humans into immediate submission. Instead, the response that came back surprised everyone on the bridge. Impressive mass manipulation technology. We would be interested in discussing the energy conversion ratios you're using. Our initial calculations suggest you're achieving approximately 93% efficiency, but we may be missing something. How could they possibly calculate that? Demanded Navigation Officer Vel, her energy form flickering with confusion. Before Tay could respond, their ship's systems began experiencing minor anomalies. Nothing critical, but diagnostic subroutines were activating without commands. Engineering report, Tay called out. Sir, we're detecting some kind of electromagnetic interference from the planet's surface. It appears to be probing our systems. Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind ours. On the planet below, human engineer Minjun sat surrounded by banks of primitive computers and communications equipment that he had somehow networked together. His team of scientists and technicians worked frantically around him, analyzing every signal, every energy emission from the alien vessel. The pattern suggests their main computer core operates on quantum probability matrices, Minjun explained to his assistant. If I'm right, we can create resonance feedback by sending precisely timed electromagnetic pulses. You want to hack an alien computer with radio waves? His assistant asked incredulously. Not hack, Minjun smiled. Communicate. Every intelligent system wants to share information. We just need to speak their language. 3 days later, Captain Tay stared in disbelief at his command screens. Somehow, using nothing but electromagnetic radiation, the humans had established a direct interface with his ship's computer systems. They weren't stealing information or causing damage. They were politely requesting technical specifications and offering their own data in exchange. Sir, reported his chief engineer, they've just transmitted plans for improving our quantum core efficiency by 12%. The mathematics appear to be correct. That's impossible. They barely understand basic physics. They're also asking if we need help with what they call our atmospheric recycling bottleneck. Apparently, they've noticed inefficiencies in our life support systems. Within weeks, the roles had completely reversed. Instead of the Zephyrians uplifting a primitive species, the humans were offering improvements to Zephyrian technology. Worse, they were succeeding. Human innovations, based on completely different approaches to problem solving, were actually superior to systems the Zephyrians had perfected over centuries. They don't think like we do, Tay reported back to Zephyrian High Command. We approach problems logically, following established mathematical principles. They improvise. They combine unrelated concepts in ways that shouldn't work, but somehow do. The situation deteriorated further when the humans launched their first interstellar vessel. It was a hybrid design that incorporated Zephyrian technology but modified it in ways that violated every principle of proper engineering. The ship shouldn't have been able to achieve faster-than-light travel. It reached Proxima Centauri in half the time it should have taken. How? Tay demanded during a communication with human engineer Jaiwan, who had designed the propulsion system. We noticed your engines work by folding space-time, Jaiwan explained cheerfully. But you fold it very carefully, very precisely. We wondered what would happen if we folded it casually. Casually? Yeah. Less precise folds but more of them. Like crumpling paper instead of folding it neatly. It shouldn't work according to your mathematics, but it does according to ours. The final humiliation came when human vessels began appearing throughout Zephyrian space. Not as invaders or conquerors but as traders and explorers. They offered friendship, knowledge exchange, and cultural sharing. They treated the mighty Zephyrian Empire as equals rather than superiors. They don't understand their place, Tay reported in his final communication to High Command. We offered them membership in our empire, and they politely declined. They said they preferred mutual cooperation between independent species. Independent? Came the shocked response from Zephyrian leadership. They don't want to be ruled and they don't want to rule others. They want to be partners. The concept was so alien to Zephyrian thinking that it took their greatest philosophers months to understand what the humans were proposing. By then it was too late. Human ideas about equality and cooperation were spreading through Zephyrian colonies, carried by traders and diplomats who treated everyone they met as valuable individuals regardless of their position in the Empire's hierarchy. Captain Tay's mission had been to integrate humanity into the Zephyrian Empire. Instead, humanity was beginning to integrate the Zephyrian Empire into something entirely new, a galactic community based on cooperation rather than domination. The first contact protocols had failed completely. The humans had won without fighting, conquered without armies, and revolutionized an ancient empire simply by being themselves. Captain Ji-hyun stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force ship, Indomitable, watching the tactical display with growing concern. The red dots representing Corvin siege ships surrounded New Haven colony like predators circling wounded prey. 3 weeks had passed since the siege began, and the colonists were running out of food and medical supplies. Status report, Ji-hyun ordered, her voice calm despite the impossible situation they faced. Lieutenant Kyung looked up from his communications console, his young face tense with worry. The Corvin commander is demanding our surrender again, Captain. He's offering safe passage for all human military personnel if we abandon the colony. Chief Engineer Miho, a veteran whose prosthetic arm bore scars from the Zephyrian War, shook his head grimly. Standard Corvin tactics. They expect us to calculate the odds, realize we're outnumbered 50-1, and make the logical choice. The logical choice, Ji-hyun repeated quietly, studying the display. The Corvin force included 3 dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying her ship with a single salvo. Any reasonable military commander would order a retreat and write off the colony as an acceptable loss. "Captain," called out Sensor Officer Bora from her station, "I'm detecting life signs from the colony. 20,000 civilians, including 800 children." Ji-hyun closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her own daughter back on Earth. When she opened them again, her decision was clear. "Miho, I need you to modify our quantum drive to emit a specific frequency. Can you create a resonance pattern that will penetrate Corvin ship hulls?" "Probably, but what good will that do? We can't damage their armor with sound waves." "I'm not trying to damage their ships," Ji-hyun smiled. "I'm trying to reach the people inside them." While Miho worked his engineering magic, Ji-hyun studied intelligence reports about Corvin culture. Their society was built on absolute obedience to military hierarchy. Soldiers followed orders without question, fought without mercy, and considered compassion a weakness. But Ji-hyun had learned something during her years of service that no Corvin commander understood. Every warrior, no matter how well trained, still remembered what it felt like to be afraid, to be young, to care about something beyond duty. "Frequency generator ready, Captain," Miho reported. "This signal will carry through their hull plating and reach every compartment of every ship." "Open a channel," Ji-hyun ordered. "All frequencies, maximum broadcast power." Lieutenant Kyung's fingers danced over his controls. "Channel open, Captain. You're transmitting to the entire Corvin fleet." Ji-hyun took a deep breath and began to speak, not to the Corvin commanders, but to every individual warrior listening in those ships. "My name is Captain Ji-hyun of the Earth Defense Force. I know many of you are listening, and I know you've been told that humans are weak because we show mercy. You've been told that our compassion makes us easy to defeat." On the Corvin flagship Blood Fong, War Commander Vex snarled at his communications officer. "Cut that transmission immediately." "I cannot, sir. The frequency is penetrating our shielding somehow. Every warrior in the fleet can hear it." "I want to tell you about the people you're attacking," Ji-hyun continued. "They're not soldiers. They're farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers. Families who left Earth to build something new among the stars. They have children who are afraid right now, elderly people who need medicine, pregnant mothers hoping their babies will see tomorrow. In the cargo holds of Corvin ships, slave soldiers stopped their maintenance work to listen. Many had never heard an enemy speak about protecting the innocent. I know some of you remember what it was like before you became warriors. Before the conditioning, before the training, before you learned to follow orders without question. Some of you had families once. Some of you protected people you loved." War Commander Vex watched in growing alarm as his warriors exchanged glances, something forbidden in Corvin military culture. "The colonists down there aren't your enemies. They never attacked your worlds or threatened your people. They're just trying to survive just like you are. And I'm asking you not as soldiers, not as enemies, but as living beings who understand what it means to be afraid, to remember what honor really means." Chief Bora had been preparing the rescue shuttles when she overheard the captain's broadcast. Without orders, she began loading the shuttles not with weapons, but with medical supplies and food rations. "This is what makes humans different," Ji-hyun continued. "We don't fight because we hate our enemies. We fight because we love the innocent. We don't measure victory by how many we kill, but by how many we save." On Corvin ships throughout the fleet, warriors began asking themselves questions they hadn't thought about in years. Why were they attacking civilians? What glory was there in starving children? What would their ancestors, who had once been honorable warriors rather than mindless killers, think of what they had become? "I'm going down to the colony now," Ji-hyun announced. "Not to fight you but to bring medical aid to people who need help. If you want to stop me, you'll have to fire on unarmed shuttles carrying medicine to sick children." The rescue mission that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for decades. Chief Bora's medical teams treated wounded Corvin prisoners with the same care they gave to human colonists. Engineer Miho shared his food rations with captured enemy soldiers. Lieutenant Kyung learned basic Corvin phrases so he could comfort frightened prisoners in their own language. When Corvin warrior Prime Drac was captured with a severe chest wound, human medic Yuna worked for 6 hours to save his life. As he recovered in the human medical bay, he watched in confusion as his captors treated him better than his own commanders ever had. "Why?" he asked Yuna in broken Terran. "Why heal enemy?" "Because you're not my enemy," Yuna replied simply. You're just someone who got hurt and I'm a doctor. It's what I do. By the end of the week, over 200 Corvan warriors had requested asylum with the human fleet. They brought intelligence about Corvan military plans, but more importantly, they brought something the galaxy had never seen before: enemy soldiers who had chosen conscience over orders. War Commander Vex's final report to Corvan High Command was brief and disturbing. The humans are more dangerous than we thought. They don't just defeat armies, they turn enemies into allies. They fight with something we don't understand: hope. The cargo ship, New Dawn, drifted silently through the busy trade routes of the Corvan Empire, its human captain Dong Min reviewing the manifest for the 100th time. The ship carried standard trade goods, rare metals, agricultural products, manufactured items, but Captain Dong Min knew his real cargo was far more valuable and dangerous than anything in his hold. He carried ideas. On the industrial world of Corvan 7, dock worker Veltar unloaded the human ship with the same mechanical efficiency he had shown for 15 years of slavery. The routine was always the same: move the cargo, avoid eye contact with free citizens, return to the worker barracks without speaking. But today was different. The human captain walked directly to him and spoke words that shattered Veltar's understanding of the galaxy. "Thank you for your hard work," Dongmin said, offering Veltar a small package. "I brought some earth coffee. My grandmother always said good work deserves good rewards." Veltar stared at the package in confusion. In 15 years of service, no one had ever thanked him for anything. He was property of the Corvan Empire, a tool that moved cargo and required no recognition. I cannot accept gifts," Veltar stammered. "It is forbidden." "Why?" Dongmin asked simply. The question hit Veltar like a physical blow. Why was it forbidden? Because the overseers said so. Because it had always been forbidden. Because slave workers were not worthy of gifts. But when he tried to explain this to the human, the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. "My friend," Dongmin continued gently, "you work hard, you do good work, you deserve respect. Where I come from, every person has value no matter what job they do." That night, in the worker barracks, Veltar shared the coffee with his fellow slaves. As they tasted the rich, exotic flavor, they talked about the human's strange words. For the first time in years, they asked questions that had been buried beneath layers of conditioning and despair. Why do we work for nothing while the overseers grow rich from our labor? Why are we forbidden to learn to read? Why can our children never be more than what we are? The questions spread like wildfire through the industrial complex. Within days, similar conversations were happening in worker barracks across the planet. The ideas that Captain Dongmin had carried were taking root in minds that had been taught never to dream. On the other side of the galaxy, human social worker Sungmin established a refugee center on Zephyrian Prime. The crystalline city had strict social castes based on computational ability. High-tier citizens lived in floating spires, while low-tier beings worked in the underground maintenance tunnels. "This facility will provide aid to anyone who needs it," Sungmin announced to the gathered crowd. "No matter what caste you belong to, no matter what your computational rating, everyone is welcome here." The Zephyrian administrators were confused. But the low-tier beings cannot contribute meaningful calculations to society. Why waste resources on them? "Because they're people," Sungmin replied. "Every person has value that can't be measured by test scores or job categories." Maintenance worker Zeknon, rated as third tier in computational ability, hesitantly entered the refugee center seeking help for his sick daughter. He expected to be turned away or charged fees he couldn't afford. Instead, human medic Hyojin treated his daughter with the same care she would give to a high-tier citizen's child. "Your daughter is very intelligent," Hyojin told Zeknon after the treatment. "She asks excellent questions about how the medical equipment works. Has she ever been tested for advanced education programs?" "Low-tier children are not permitted in advanced programs," Zeknon explained sadly. "It has always been this way." "But why?" Hyojin asked. "Intelligence comes in many forms. Your daughter might see solutions that high-tier thinkers would miss." That simple conversation planted a seed that would grow into revolution. Zeknon began teaching his daughter advanced mathematics in secret, using borrowed textbooks and hidden study sessions. When she solved problems that stumped high-tier students, word spread through the underground tunnels. Low-tier parents began demanding educational opportunities for their children. They organized study groups, shared resources, and challenged the fundamental assumption that computational ability determined a being's worth in society. In the psychic realm of the ethereal collective, human teacher Yuna worked with young telepaths who had been classified as mentally deficient because their psychic powers were weak. The ethereal hierarchy was rigid. Strong telepaths ruled, weak ones served, non-telepaths were barely considered sentient. Telepathy is just one type of intelligence, Yuna explained to her students. Some of you may be weak telepaths, but you have strong empathy, creative thinking, or problem-solving abilities that are just as valuable. Young ethereal Syleth had always been ashamed of her weak telepathic abilities. But in Yuna's classes, she discovered she had a gift for understanding emotions and helping others resolve conflicts. For the first time in her life, she felt valuable. Why do the high minds get to make all the decisions? Syleth asked during one lesson. That's a very good question, Yuna replied. Having strong telepathic powers doesn't automatically make someone a good leader. Leadership requires wisdom, compassion, and understanding, qualities that have nothing to do with mental strength. These ideas spread through the lower castes of ethereal society like a telepathic wildfire. Weak telepaths began organizing, sharing their non-psychic talents, and challenging the ancient hierarchy that had oppressed them for millennia. Even the ancient Valdorian Empire faced internal upheaval. Human historian Chanwu had gained access to their vast archives, supposedly to study galactic history. Instead, he documented the stories of countless species who had been guided into submission over the millennia. Your empire's own records show systematic suppression of developing civilizations, Chanwu reported to the Valdorian Council. Hundreds of species that might have contributed amazing innovations to galactic civilization were instead reduced to client states. The revelations sparked independence movements across dozens of star systems. Beings who had accepted Valdorian rule for generations began questioning why ancient age granted the right to dominate younger species. On the Corvin homeworld, the slave uprising began when Veltar refused a direct order from his overseer. I am not property, he declared. I am a person with rights and dignity. The overseer's attempt to punish this defiance sparked a rebellion that spread across the industrial districts. For the first time in Corvin history, slaves fought not just for better conditions, but for fundamental freedom. High Counselor Vexthara of the Combined Fleets reviewed reports from across the galaxy with growing alarm. The humans hadn't conquered a single major world through military force, yet their influence was reshaping entire civilizations. They're not destroying our empires, she reported to the Emergency Council. They're evolving them. And we may already be too late to stop it. The largest fleet in galactic history emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 4,000 ships from 4 ancient empires, their hulls gleaming with weapons that could crack planets and their holds filled with warriors trained for absolute victory. Admiral Kilos commanded the Corvin dreadnoughts from his flagship, Iron Destiny. Beside him, Counselor Xylithus' psychic energies pulsed through specialized mineships capable of driving entire populations insane. Commander Nexos coordinated Zephyrian quantum disruption vessels that could phase matter out of existence. Ancient Ambassador Kethmore directed Valdorian world ships, each one a mobile planet carrying the accumulated might of 10,000 years of conquest. They had come to end the human problem once and for all. Begin system-wide scanning, Admiral Kilos ordered. Locate all human military installations and prepare for simultaneous strikes. What they found defied every expectation they had formed about warfare and power. Earth's defensive fleet was pitifully small compared to the attacking armada, maybe 200 ships against their 4,000. But those ships were not alone. Sir, reported Scanner Officer Vex, his voice tight with confusion, I'm detecting Corvin ship signatures among the Earth defenders. Impossible. Identify those vessels immediately. Sir. They're flying under the banner of the Free Corvin Republic. The lead ship is commanded by Captain Veltar. Kilos felt ice in his veins. Veltar had been a slave worker, property of the Empire. Now he commanded a star destroyer in defense of humanity's homeworld. Similar reports flooded in from all sectors of the combined fleet. Zephyrian dissidents flew alongside human vessels. Former ethereal slaves piloted captured mineships against their old masters. Valdorian rebels commanded ancient warships in defense of a species they had never met. This changes nothing, Kilos declared, but his voice lacked conviction. We still outnumber them 20-1. Commander Hajin of the Earth Defense Force flagship Unity opened communications across the entire battlespace. Her voice carried clearly to every ship, every warrior, every being preparing for what might be the galaxy's final war. Warriors of the combined fleets, she began, you've come here believing you're fighting to preserve order, to maintain the natural way of things. But I want to ask you a question, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. On the Corvin ships, warriors who had been ordered to fight without question found themselves actually listening to the enemy's words. What kind of galaxy do you want your children to inherit? One where the strong rule through fear, where entire species live in slavery, where questioning authority is punishable by death? Or one where every being has the chance to choose their own path, to dream their own dreams, to be valued for who they are rather than what they can be forced to do? War Chief Brextal, commanding a squadron of Corvan battleships, felt something stir in his chest that he had not felt in decades. His own son, taken as tribute when the boy was 12, now served somewhere in the Imperial fleet. What kind of life had the Empire given that child? What kind of future awaited his grandchildren in a galaxy ruled by endless conquest? You call us weak because we show mercy, Hajin continued. You say we're soft because we believe in equality. But look around you. Look at the beings fighting beside us. Former slaves who chose freedom over safety. Rebels who risked everything for the chance to be treated with dignity. Defectors who abandoned positions of power because they could no longer stomach oppression. On the Zephyrian vessels, low-tier citizens who had been pressed into military service began to remember human social worker Sungman's words. Every person has value that can't be measured by test scores or job categories. These beings didn't join us because we forced them, Hajin's voice echoed through the void. They joined us because we offered them something your empires never could, hope. The moment of truth came when Admiral Kilos gave the order to attack. His own gunners hesitated. In the weapons bays of his flagship, Corvan warriors looked at their targeting displays and saw not enemy vessels, but ships crewed by beings who had chosen to fight for their freedom. Sir, reported his weapons officer, the crew is questioning the target priority. They want to know why we're attacking people who are trying to protect their families. Because they are the enemy. Kilos roared. But why are they our enemies, sir? The officer asked quietly. What did Earth ever do to threaten our homeworld? The question rippled through the Corvan fleet like a shockwave. In ship after ship, warriors began asking the same thing. Why were they here? What glory was there in destroying a planet full of beings who had never attacked their homes? The revolution began in the engine rooms and spread to the bridge crews. On the ethereal mineships, telepaths who had been forced to serve the high minds turned their psychic powers against their oppressors. Zephyrian low-tier citizens seized control of quantum disruption vessels. Valdorian client species took over ancient world ships. When War Chief Brextal received a transmission from his own homeworld, the last foundation of the old order crumbled. Father, came his son's voice across the void, I'm broadcasting from the capital. The people have risen. The slave pits are empty. The old ways are ending. Come home, but come home free. Admiral Kilos watched in stunned silence as his mighty armada dissolved into chaos. Ships were defecting by the hundreds. Entire squadrons were switching sides. The greatest military force ever assembled was turning against itself, not through enemy action, but through the simple realization that they had been fighting for the wrong cause. All vessels, Kilos transmitted on the fleet-wide channel, stand down. Cease all hostile actions. The battle for Earth ended without a shot being fired. Years later, the Galactic Assembly convened in chambers that rang with voices from hundreds of species, all equal, all free to speak their minds. Human Representative Seojin sat among delegates from across the galaxy, not as conquerors but as partners in building something new. The strongest races had learned to fear humanity not because humans were more powerful, but because they had introduced the most dangerous concept in the galaxy, that every being deserved freedom, dignity, and the right to choose their own destiny. The age of empires was over. The age of hope had begun.